Hello, beautiful. Welcome to Dr. Sarah's Cafe. This is your weekly refill. The flavor of the week is School of Life. Will you advance to the next level? So, School of Life, 1, life is all about learning. Life is all about lessons. We will not escape life without learning something, or actually, we can choose to refuse the lessons. We can choose to not learn and sort of be on this hamster wheel or this cycle of our life and our souls trying to constantly learn and grow a particular lesson. So with the question, will you advance to the next level, is basically a question of saying, are we willing to take the lesson this time? Are we willing to learn the lesson? Are we willing to gather the wisdom that our spirits are trying to evolve and grow and gather for themselves? And the lessons can come from joyful, beautiful, happy moments, but just as often, lessons are likely to come from uncomfortable, difficult moments, conflict, loss, forms of disappointment, etc. And so it's a helpful question to say, what can I learn from this? What is the lesson here for me? And what I'm feeling and what I'm experiencing. How can I use this? How can I leverage this to further evolve my soul? Okay. Now, the specific ingredients involved, we're going to start with the astrology. There are, earlier in the week on the 13th and the 15th, we have 2 astrology events involving the planet of Mars. On the 13th, Mars comes into a conjunction with Jupiter and Gemini, meaning Mars and Jupiter will be at the same exact point in the sky on August 13th. And so this to me feels like well-caffeinated Santa Claus. Adding too much soap to the dishwasher. Super Saiyan for those, what was that show called? Dragon Ball Z. Teen with new sports car. Or that friend you always get in trouble with. So Jupiter is the energy of expansion. It wants to give gifts and just create abundance wherever it goes with whatever it touches. And then Mars is sort of like that very fast-paced, action-oriented, aggressive sign. So they're really just amplifying each other. It's like adding a stimulant, or accelerant to the flames. But then 2 days later on August 15th, Mars and Jupiter, still in conjunction, are going to square Saturn and Pisces. And I did a whole video about Saturn retrograde in Pisces. Check that out if you haven't seen it yet. And so what this says, with Saturn being slow, Saturn being discipline, Saturn being boundaries, the exact opposite energy of Mars and Jupiter, it is mitigating that teen with the sports car. It's like the teen gets the sports car, but they have parental controls that only let the car go above a certain speed, right? Or it's, wanting to speed through traffic, but you can't because traffic is really slow. It's bumper to bumper. So you really can't go anywhere, even if you have the urge to. And it's boundaries, it's maturity and wisdom. So having a lot of energy, but with Saturn coming into the mix, we have restrictions, what might feel like limitations, but they're really helping us to leverage all that energy in a way that's mature, in a way that's sustainable for the long term, because Saturn also wants to build for the long term. Okay. So I think these are powerful energies, very, very powerful. And if you approach them or have the right framework for what's happening, you definitely can leverage them for something constructive. Now, other people might just see it as like frustration and like having too much energy and not knowing what to do with it, or feeling like the world is just beating them down and not letting them break free. So just remember, you have a powerful sports car, but what's the safest way to use it? What's a way to use the sports car that both you and the car will be here as long as possible, if you catch my drift? And then 3 days later, we have some interesting activity happening in the sky. And it is Mercury in Leo squaring Uranus and Taurus. And because there was so much happening on this day, I limited myself to just one bullet point per astrology event. So with Mercury squaring Uranus, this I am feeling as breaking free from stubborn ideas. Breaking free from stubborn ideas. So there might be a concept, a narrative, a script, a belief, some piece of information or knowledge that we struggle to let go of or release, even though it is faulty, even though it is flawed, even though it might be fallacious. We might have just been comfortable with it. It might have just appeased our own prejudices and biases. So Mercury and Leo squaring Uranus and Taurus, this is an opportunity to actually see the truth, but and hopefully also to accept the truth. Now, this could be painful for some people who are really committed to a certain type of idea or perception. And some people get their identities caught up in these things. Like my identity, all of who I know and am is based on this one specific belief or piece of information. And so when all of that is called into question, some people can cling to the illusion and other people see it as an opportunity to break free from stubborn ideas, again, to grow. Remember, the flavor of the week is school of life. And so I see this as a lesson. And again, some people will refuse the lesson. They will say, nope, you're pointing out facts. You're saying this was false. You're saying this is true or untrue. And I'm just going to choose to believe what I have already been believing, what I've always believed, what my parents have always believed, what my grandparents have always believed. I'm not willing to open my mind to a new paradigm. Okay. And then the other thing that's happening on that day, a second thing, is Sun and Mercury coming into a cazimi. So with Mercury and the Sun being conjunct in the same spot on the sky, they are together squaring Uranus. So it makes what I'm saying that much more potent. And I'm seeing a Mercury cazimi in general, aside from the fact that it's squaring Uranus, is that it's almost like office hours with the professor. So if we stick with this school of life analogy, and we're in class and we've been studying a particular subject, this Mercury conjunct the Sun is sort of like, I'm going to get one-on-one time with the professor to have a deeper understanding of what's happening so that I can really understand the gaps in my knowledge, so that I can really get direct, personalized feedback and course correct. Okay. Other ways to think about a Mercury cazimi is that it could be an epiphany type feeling. And it's almost like having a heart to heart with the king. Like you have this very strong, powerful authority figure. And in this moment of you learning a lesson, because Mercury is retrograde as well. So that just again emphasizes the fact that we need to reconsider something, rethink something, unlearn something. And we get a direct conversation with this authority figure who can show us, if we're open to it, what needs to be fixed, what needs to be worked on, what needs to be course corrected. Okay. What more there is to learn, or maybe what we've already learned is just fine, but there's still more for us to learn. And so this Mercury cazimi could make that very clear to us, exactly what that is. And then the third thing happening on that day, Venus in Virgo squaring Jupiter in Gemini. Okay. So I'm feeling this as seeing the forest in the trees. Now, a lot of times we hear the phrase, you can't see the forest for the trees. And what that means is that you're so focused on the minute details. You're so focused on small one-off instances and things that you lose sight of the bigger picture. You forget that a forest is more than just one specific tree or one specific plant or one specific animal. And so sometimes we see ourselves in that way as well. We say like, oh, all I'm focused on is my life. And we forget the fact that we're part of an entire cosmos. We're part of a universal, global, human, meta-human, beyond human existence, reality, ecosystem. And so how can we gain more of that perspective? And I'm thinking, sensing, feeling that this Venus and Virgo squaring Jupiter and Gemini will allow us to see the forest in the trees. Now, what do I mean by that? Let me break it down a little bit. I think I actually saw this quote on Threads, and I don't know who to attribute it to, because I don't think the person who shared the quote was the original author to begin with. But it's that you are not a single drop from the ocean or of the ocean. You are the entire ocean within a single drop. And so to me, this feels like being able to see both the beauty of an individual tree without losing sight of the beauty of the entire ecosystem of the forest, right? Let me know in the comments if I need to re-explain that. Okay, so let's get to our tarot ingredients. One card, the Hierophant card. So take a look at the images I've chosen to discuss this card, the Hierophant. You see the pillars, the stone gray pillars in the background, as well as two golden keys, okay? So let's take a look at this. What we mean when we say the Hierophant. It can stand for things like structure, routines, or rituals in your life, or in collective, or in society, or within a community. The routines and rituals of your religion, or your faith, or your academic circumstance, your family, or just your individual life. It could be tradition, your family traditions, your nation's traditions, your ethnic groups' traditions, right? It also represents institutions. So institutions of marriage, of higher learning, governments, banks, larger social structures. And speaking of education, it responds to higher learning. So when we think about school of life, we start out in elementary school, we start learning the basics, and then hopefully we graduate. Hopefully we advance to higher and higher levels of education and learning. So this Hierophant card coming out is one of the reasons that, the flavor of the week is that it's not just school of life, but the advancement, the initiation, being initiated into in having insider knowledge, right? So you go to law school and then you take your residency, and it's like you get to see behind the curtain, and there's so much more you learn as a medical student than you learn as a patient, right? And I remember feeling this way when I started teaching. I was like, oh, as a student, you think you understand education, and then you become a teacher, and it's like, oh, being a teacher is not at all what I thought it was from the other side as a student, right? Or from the other side as a parent or someone in the community, etc. And so it's like you get initiated into the world of education from the perspective of an educator, and it's a whole other field or scope of perspective and knowledge and information that goes into that. Again, the same example with like medicine. You have a valid perspective as a student, parent, patient, client, but it's not a complete perspective. It's by no means the full perspective that is missing that professional protocol, that deeper study, that tried and tested, data-driven, collective, shared history and knowledge of people who practice that profession, right? And so we need, again, the totality of those experiences. And then faith and commitment. The Hierophant is also faith and commitment. And so the pillars, thinking about what are the pillars of your life? What are the pillars of your day-to-day life? What are the pillars of our society? And do those need to be reconfigured? Do those need to be brought into question? Do they need to be completely torn down? Do we need to add more pillars? Do we need to, realign with particular pillars collectively as well as individually? And then thinking about what is your faith, thinking about your higher philosophy, your overall approach to life, and are you committed to that? Again, so the routine and the ritual expresses or is a manifestation of a commitment. So if you're committed to going to the gym every day, or committed to writing every day, you show up, you show that commitment, and it becomes a routine. And the keys here represent that access to deeper knowledge, right? Becoming an insider to something, whether it's the keys to an official place or an official institution, or simply the keys to universal wisdom, right? Higher truth, deeper knowing, right? What is the key that unlocks a new perspective, a new paradigm for you, or just the next chapter of your learning in your journey here in Earth School, okay? And then we have the Oracle message. So 2 cards came out when I shuffled for these Oracle cards. Number 7, a deep breath. And number 21, exposed and revealed. So again, I love the colors, the vibrancy of the colors on these oracle cards that I've been using this deck as well as the African Goddess Rising deck. So let's take a look at some of the meaning behind these. Key concepts for a deep breath: healing shame, or actually I think this is exposed and revealed. Healing shame, the imposter syndrome, letting go of self-condemnation, freedom from past unresolved wounds, focusing on self-worth, the underlying beauty in rejection. So remember when I started this, I talked about how lessons can come from beautiful, positive things, but a lot of what we learn in life school, a lot of what we learn in the school of life comes from the hard, painful, difficult situations and circumstances, right? And so as I'm saying that the flavor this week is school of life, will you advance to the next level? It does imply that some of us will learn lessons the hard way. Some of us will learn lessons through difficult, uncomfortable, less than preferable experiences. It doesn't have to be that way, but at some point, if we live long enough, we will all encounter those kinds of lessons. And so thinking about healing the shame, is this difficult experience or challenging situation an opportunity to heal some shame within myself? Is it a chance to overcome that imposter syndrome? Am I feeling imposter syndrome now precisely so that I can overcome it? Letting go of self-condemnation, right? And if we don't feel these kinds of feelings, we can't work on them, right? It's like you have to look at the thing in order to be able to work the thing. And if it never comes up, you can't really look at it. You can't really assess it if it's not like making itself available. And then freedom from past unresolved wounds, focusing on self-worth. So that's going to be really key here. And the underlying beauty in rejection. So much to learn from rejection. We might have heard of the phrase rejection is protection, or rejection is redirection. So keep that in mind, use those mantras along the way this week and into the future. If rejection is one of the forms that packages that this lesson is wrapped in for you. Okay. There's a little bit more here that I want to share. The fear is asking for your attention. So it's not just enough to feel your feelings. You also want to pay attention to your feelings. Listen to them. There's oftentimes valuable information in our feelings. So if we feel fear, it's okay to feel it, but also be willing to reflect on what that fear is informing you or making you aware of. Okay. Fear is asking for your attention and healing right now. You or another person operating from the position of fear. If you also see red flags, you might be headed toward genuine danger, perhaps repeating a lesson, school of life, you don't need to learn again. You can honor this kind of fear by saying thank you and protect yourself by choosing another path. So this is not only being in life school, but when you make that choice for another path, that's advancing to the next level, right? And in this moment, you have all it takes to make this shift. In this moment, you have all it takes to wrap up that lesson, wrap up that level, and advance to the next. If, on the other hand, the fear surrounds the idea of taking a risk, be mindful. Radical trust and accepting the discomfort of the new is called for as you move out of your comfort zone. Ask for courage to take a leap into the unknown and know that all will be well. And I'm smiling here because recently one of the affirmations that I wrote was about taking a leap into the unknown, right? And I hadn't read this card when I made that affirmation. So that's confirmation for the affirmation. All right, folks, we are going into the pastry and poetry. So I mentioned that oftentimes I will have an actual poem or actual poetry or some other form of literature like fiction or essays or quotes from the Tao of Jeet Kune Do. Here I just have one simple quote from the iconic James Baldwin, okay? And that is, the paradox of education is precisely this, that as one begins to become conscious, one begins to examine the society in which he is being educated. I'm going to repeat that. The paradox of education is precisely this, that as one begins to become conscious, one begins to examine the society in which he is being educated. So we're thinking about the flavor of the week and school of life and what all of that means, what it potentially means. And here we have this quote by James Baldwin about the concept of education in general. Now, of course, he's talking about maybe like public education, like K-12 schooling. But also we can think of less formal ways of educating ourselves. So as we are thinking more consciously about our school of life experience, and are we actually integrating, taking the lessons to move on, evolve, grow, heal? It is asking us to consider the paradigm, the institutions, that Hierophant card, the pillars that our lives are built on. The more educated we become, the more we have to reconsider, reflect on the appropriateness of our philosophies, of our beliefs, of our doctrines, okay, of our routines and rituals and institutions, okay? I'm being very gentle here because I know that's not an easy task. I know as you learn these life lessons and you come to realize you're in the wrong marriage, you come to realize you're in the wrong career, you come to realize you're in the wrong religious institution, you are different from the people you have been trying to fit in with, that you've been trying to create community with, and you realize it's not the right community. So many revelations and understandings as we continue to learn about ourselves, about our life purpose, about life itself, the mystery of the universe and our divinity, our sovereignty. A healthy form of that is going to necessitate a questioning, an examining. And I think about the movie Doubt and the concept of doubt. And again, I don't know who to attribute this quote to, but I'm going to say it. And if you know the author, you can leave it in the comments. That doubt is ultimately healthy. Questioning, examining is very, very healthy. Not playing devil's advocate. I'm not talking about that. I mean, it's okay to verify your beliefs and to test them against new information and to test them against new knowledge and new awareness and new learning and new lessons. It's also okay that something was true for a while, but is no longer true. That is okay. Something can be true temporarily. It doesn't have to be true indefinitely. And that requires a lot of compassion and a lot of self-forgiveness. We might be afraid to face the truth, the new truth that's being revealed to us because we're afraid of what it means about the past. So if you tell me if I accept this new truth, then my entire past was a lie. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Your past could have been every bit as true in the past. And it's okay. And if it's authentic and right and aligned, it's actually healthy that the truth has changed for you now. And I know some people might be thinking like, how could the truth ever change if it's the truth, capital T, truth? Well, I'm going to give you a very simple, direct example. It was true that for a long time, I wanted to be an architect. And then that no longer became true. I wanted something else. It doesn't mean that those years when I really, really wanted to be an architect, it's not that I didn't really want that at the time. I did. That was true. But then as I changed, my truth changed. It was no longer true for me that I had this particular goal or this particular passion. And just like with school, at various points in our journey through the school of life, we need different things at different stages of that journey. So what you need when you're in kindergarten is very different from what you need when you're getting your doctorate degree. what you need from your teacher, what you need from administrators. When you're in kindergarten, you need your teacher to walk you to the bathroom. When you're in middle school, you need your teacher to work on your handwriting and show you how to format a piece of paper, right? Versus what you need in your doctoral program is more questions, more pushes and nudges to stretch your thinking, right? So many times as we elevate in our journey of actual school as well as life school, we require different structures in order to thrive in that particular phase of our life. And if we get attached to those external structures, we can impede our own growth and advancement. So you might have loved your teacher walking you to the bathroom in preschool. You might have loved your parents cutting off the crust on your sandwiches. But if you limit yourself to that structure, to that routine, to that system, you'll never mature. You'll never grow and become the next version of yourself. And so I'm being called to ask us to reflect what are the structures that, though valuable and helpful for a time, would actually be a limitation and a setback going forward. Okay. All right. I am plugging my personal intuitive readings here. So I am doing one-on-one consultations, pre-recorded videos for anyone who wants direct support or insights or confirmations or direct affirmations to something going on in your life. So I leverage my intuition. I leverage cards, specifically tarot and oracle cards. I look at your astrology and I look at your personal numerology as well to sort of give context and to give context to a question that you have or some experience that you're currently dealing with. Usually people present challenges when they come to these kinds of sessions or readings. But you could just be looking for more confirmation, more clarity, even a different perspective, right? And so there are lots of reasons to get an intuitive reading or a psychic reading or a tarot card reading, various names for all these things. And so those are available. And I now have 3 different options. I have a 30-minute, 45-minute, and 60-minute option that you can look at. There will be a link in the description box for that. And then lastly, my dears, your takeaway as we continue on our journey in the school of life and we strive to advance to the level that our souls aimed for when they incarnated in these physical avatars, is to breathe. Just breathe. In fact, we can do it together before we sign off, okay? All right, beautiful. I hope that this has helped you in some way to refill your spiritual cup, and I hope to see you in another video.